How you doing, guys? Parson. It's my thoughts on the Netflix film. Tessa Thompson, Ruth Negga, starring those two, directed by Rebecca Hall and written by her. And I think it's based on a book, correct me if I'm wrong, by Nella Larsen, I believe. Uncomfortable. That's my one word summary for this movie. Because I always felt on edge. You know, one of the first strong thoughts I had watching this movie. This feels like the movie that Jordan Peele should have directed after Get Out, because I got that same eerie, something was in my chest, making me feel some type. Even now, I just think about it, it's some knot in my chest is can't get out. And there's a couple of ways the movie reinforces that feeling for me. One of the biggest ways, is through obviously the acting performances. I think that's what made the movie for me, but there was some certain other things. The acting performance of not just Tessa Thompson as Irene and Ruth Negga as Claire, but also some of the supporting characters like her character's husband in the film, the husband of Ruth Negga in the movie, some of the supporting characters here and there, certain scenes that I'll get into. But first and foremost, with Irene, Tessa Thompson, Ruth Negga, there's something at the start of the movie that I remember put me off when I was thinking about it. I didn't realize until I gave it a bit of thought. But throughout this movie, Irene, Tessa Thompson's character, she always felt this little jealousy because her friend is passing as a white woman. And yet at the start of this movie, she is so light-skinned herself that she is passing in a white neighborhood to buy certain things. Just let that sink in. Throughout this movie, I don't know, maybe it's implying her background. I like that this movie doesn't hand you anything outright in terms of information about characters. But there's something about Tessa Thompson's character's movie where she feels like she's willfully ignorant to some degree about her position in the world. Yes, there's a lot of disadvantages now and definitely back then to being a black woman. That said, again, she's in a house with a lot of servants. Again, she's a upper class, at least in the black context, upper class, lighter skinned woman, so light skinned that she passes off as white at some point in the movie when she meets her friend, who is permanently passing as a white woman. But understandably, she's a little bothered by Claire's character, and I think a little jealous of her. But throughout the movie, there's always she's staring. At one point, I feel like she was staring at her in a sexual way. I'm not really sure if I was misreading that. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a good read on stuff like that, on same-sex attraction in films, and unless it's blatantly obvious. But that was the feeling I got from her. She had these flurry of emotions of jealousy and low-key fetish or allure, a desire for her friend Claire, but she still felt negatively towards her at the same time. You couldn't always completely tell from her, and it weirded me out throughout the movie. There's a great scene, the dance scene, that reinforces that, and I love that scene because the way she talks, you can feel her contempt, but at the same time, it's there's certain other things she does, staring at her. She grabs her hand. Irene, Tessa Thompson's character, she grabs Ruth Negga's hand at one point, her character, Claire. There's always a weird vibe that she gave off to me, that she's uncomfortable in her own body, but just she's uncomfortable with being reminded of the reality she lives in. Again, understandable as a black woman, but it felt like it was other. Maybe there may be so much more context that I'm missing, but it just felt like she was uncomfortable with who she is. Again, arguably wouldn't blame her because that all that passing stuff is obviously because of systems of supremacy. But yeah, that made me very uncomfortable watching this movie. I didn't realize how much so until I started thinking about it after I watched the movie. Like, oh yeah. But then you juxtapose that as well with Negga's character, who I remember the first time seeing her. And speaking of that feeling that I got watching Get Out that I mentioned earlier, there's a scene in a cafe or diner when they first meet at the start of the movie. By the way, all the way spoilers, I don't care. The way Ruth Negga is just staring dead at Tessa Thompson, like, I see you. I That reminded me of that grandma in Get Out, who was also a servant in the house, who was just staring at Chris like, no, 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 it's okay. No, 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 no. So staring at her. Yo, horror movie. But then it became something else. It became, oh, you're my friend. I want to see you. I miss you. This and that. And that reconnection. But again, that same time, that reconnection, just her, who she is, as someone who's so light skinned, she's passing off as a white woman. What she represents is something that is, I'm not gonna lie to you, again, an uncomfortable feeling for a completely different reason. I noticed something in this movie where even when she was hanging out with black people, she was still being fetishized. And again, it wasn't in an obvious way, it was just the way people were interacting with her. The way the husband of Tessa Thompson's character is interacting with her, of course, is not like an today or back then. It's not a unknown thing that black men can fetishize other races of women, especially white women, among others. But again, that was the uncomfortable feeling that I keep talking about. This reinforced that. The fact that she really believed that she could get away, that bothered me. At one point, Tessa Thompson's character just asks her outright, like, what do you think is going to happen if people find out? Or if your husband finds out, your white husband from your very racist white in-laws find out, or anyone else in mainstream society finds out. And she says her answer that is so naive, but again, it makes me think that the real problem in this movie isn't even passing in the literal sense. It's everyone deluding themselves into thinking that they're living a life which they're not really, or everyone's hiding, mentally speaking. And that's the real dangerous threat. So I don't even blame Claire completely for moving that way. It's just it was still alarming. I won't lie to you. I just thought about something actually about Tessa Thompson's character again, which reminded me of how she kept trying to deny reality in a different but similar way to her friend. There's scenes where the husband and her kids are talking about lynching, and she's like, I won't have you talk about the race problem in our house. The race problem. Low key, I was getting like rich white girl vibes, but again, it may be the fact that maybe because she was a fair skinned black woman, so she's that privileged, she's just not aware of it. And me, I'm not gonna lie, me watching this movie, of course, someone who isn't American, someone who knows some of the history but not all of it, I don't know what that experience is like. I don't know what it's like now or back then to be a black woman. So I think everything about this movie just all comes back to like a lifelong cycle, like a dangerous cycle of denial and pretending like you're living in a different reality to something else. But obviously, the only reason why stuff like that exists is because of that society we live in, to some extent, the society we live in today. and I get they weren't the real enemies, but it just felt personal and uncomfortable throughout. The husband of Tessa Thompson's character said something again which put me off. It actually made me laugh. He said something like, it's a scene where they were arguing. You could tell they had a bad vibe the more you got into their dynamic. And he said something like, "Oh, when she was starting to suspect that, you're a little like staring a little too friendly with Irene, the white friend." He said something like, "No, I like my women dark." You mean as in your light skinned wife who's so light skinned she can pass as a white person, and she was passing as a white person at the start of this movie. Get the fuck out my face. But you know what? Again, the theme of denial, right? Of course, I know because I've had that mentality myself. I'm not talking like someone who's completely not ignorant to that mentality, or like fetishizing other races of women, fetishizing black women in certain ways. But I liked, again, supporting characters and the main characters were reinforcing that theme of, oh yeah, everyone is just pretending to be someone versus what they really are, and that certain ignorances come to light. But that was the main big thing about what I liked about the movie, the acting performances. But there were certain other things that I liked too, that I'll get to. The lighting. I liked that at the start of this movie, Tessa Thompson, the main character, when she's in the white neighborhood, even though this movie is black and white, you can tell certain scenes were lit away where it's very bright. I noticed that. And then when she later on, Tessa Thompson's character goes back to where she lives in a black neighborhood, you notice it's a bit darker again. But then later on in the movie, even when she's in around certain black people in certain neighborhoods, she's is a little lighter instead of darker. It starts to blur the lines. You can tell again this movie is trying to deliberately put you off instead of make you think one way or another. Black, white, bad pun, understand. And I liked it a lot. But it's only after giving it more thought I was thinking, wait, actually, it's actually making me feel some type of way when I'm in certain scenes. I'm looking at the screen, and I liked it a lot. Again, another one of my favorite scenes where she's talking to someone in a dance. I mentioned it earlier. She's talking to someone in a dance hall party place, and they're talking about passing, and she low key outs her friend. And the person she's talking to is a white man. He's like, "Oh my god, it's amazing. Can you tell the difference?" And she's like, "Please, don't do that. Don't even go there with me." So again, she's aware enough to know when people are like kind of crossing the line, questioning those type of things. But at the same time, she's like, when someone even tells her, "Oh, you know what, you could pass," and then again, this is all reminded me that, you know what, everyone was prisoner to a certain mentality. And again, today, a lot of people are still prisoners to a certain mentality. So the more I think about this movie, the more I think about how we're just victims of the society we live in, the communities we live in, and how certain mentalities burden us. Sometimes not by choice, because of people aren't trained to recognize their ignorances at a young age. And you see that in this movie. And lastly, the thing I liked was how unclear the ending was. I have a theory. Here's my theory. My theory is certain someone. Actually, you know what? I said spoilers. Claire was pushed. She was pushed out that window, for sure. Irene had her hands to her stomach. It felt like she was trying to motion her out of the way. Now, you can argue maybe it was by accident. Obviously, a part of her was like, You know what? Bun this girl. Like, I'm not messing with you. No way, Jose. I'm good. And what did that lead to? Led to her husband confronting her. You could argue that he was trying to get close to her and push out the window himself, saw opportunity, but I think that's actually one least likely, less likely. What's more likely is either she, Claire, fell out the window by her own accord, or, in my opinion, Irene was, because she had her hand on her stomach. If you seen the scene, and she was slowly like pushing her to the side, but it didn't feel like in a bad way, in my opinion. It just felt like a, let me protect this girl because her white husband, who knows that she's not white, definitely will kill her. And I think she accidentally killed her by like maybe not realizing that she pushed out the window. That's why everyone was like, and she was just like staring blankly for a little bit, and then she looked down and then slowly and then saw her dead body in the ground. I think that's closer to the truth of what happened. That it was an accident, but it was all in the moment. She was staring at the husband. Tessa Thompson's character. She wasn't staring at her. She was staring at her husband. I feel like if there was more intent or more, I don't know the specific word. There's more thought behind it. It would have felt a little more calculated when she pushed her, but it didn't, in my opinion. And I did love the lack of clarity there, the the scene, the way it was filmed. Shout out to everyone who filmed. Shout out to the director, Rebecca Hall. I believe she wrote this as well. Obviously, it's based on the book, but I liked that directing and that filming. Shout out to the people who filmed the scene. And those are my thoughts, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on the film. Like I said, with spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, tell me, would you see it? I think it's a really interesting movie. I think you would like it, especially if you're interested in like histories of American racism and just like racism in general. So let's not pretend like people who are very light skinned. There's no history in like the UK, other parts of Europe, South America. What's the term? The outdated term, mulattoes, right? Like people who are so light skinned, because that's where stuff like colorism comes from. Stuff that I've mentioned before earlier, thing that I've been ignorant to myself. I like that this is an examination of that through these two characters and the environment and the society they live in. But like I said, guys, tell me your thoughts down below. If you've seen the movie, if you haven't, would you see it? Other than that, guys, like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends. I'm signing off. Salute.